Hey, it's MJ from the Coaches Panel. I hope you're well. Welcome back to another episode as we look through every single player that moves clubs during the free agency and trade period, let you know what it means for the club they're departing, the club they're arriving to, and a summary of what we can expect for AFL Fantasy and SuperCoach in 2024 and beyond. One of the next players that moved on this period was Ruckman Matthew Flynn. As a free agent, he moved from the Giants and he is now a West Coast Eagles player. But what does it mean for the Giants? For them, probably just puts my boy, Braden Bruce, just up that next level. While Matthew started the year as the number one ruck, it was very, very clear that Kieran Briggs was a really important piece of the resurgence of that club from the mid-season. Now, was that causation or correlation? Ultimately, the Giants are the only ones to know, but from an outsider looking in, I really do think Briggs offered some physicality around the ground and at stoppages that Matthew just wasn't able to provide. Doesn't mean Matthew's not a good player, but clearly Briggs fitted in a little bit better with that midfield unit. So it's not a surprise to me that Matthew has gone, hang on, Briggs is now number one. Bruce is going to come back from injury. Man, I might find myself as third fiddle. Thank you very much. I'll head to another club where I might be a little bit better opportunity to play regular AFL football. So for the Giants, it probably just means they're re-signing Bruce and they're going to run him as the backup to a Kieran Briggs. They might look to go and draft something a little bit late to just add some insurance policy through there. But if they do go and pick up an Elliot Himmelberg, who at time of releasing this video is intended to head to the Giants but isn't locked in, if he gets there, he could be a nice insurance policy for them as well as an additional ruck forward option. But I think that the Giants will be relatively happy to see Flynn disappear. From a West Coast Eagles perspective, Nick Naitanui is the big out of their team from this year. Bailey Williams, I thought, was really quite solid in the ruck this year, but Flynn probably will push Williams right to the limit. Now, what that structurally looks like, I don't mind Flynn as a forward as well. I thought when he's played forward, at times he's looked quite damaging, so he could be another option that allows Oscar Allen to never have to be pushed outside of the forward 50. Darling can move into more of a third tall type forward, and a nice way to ease him through in the back part of his career. And Flynn and Williams, both have shown some moments where they can play forward quite well. So I wouldn't be too surprised at all if the Eagles tried to play both of these guys as a ruck forward and found an element of split depending on matchups and variable other outcomes. But I think he plays Matt Flynn. Now, whether or not that's with or surpassing Bailey Williams, the off-season and the pre-season trading, we will get to see exactly how they gel together as a squad. But I think he's moving for further opportunities and he'll definitely get more opportunities at West Coast than he will at the Giants. So I think it's a nice move for Matthew, and I think it's a nice move for the Eagles getting a mature-bodied ruck who's shown that he can compete at AFL level. So, SuperCoach and AFL Fantasy, what does it mean? Well, last year, a handful of games, okay, it was a little bit more than that, it was about 9 games he played last year. Average in the mid-70s in AFL Fantasy. He also had a season and career-high 110 score this year, so great news. While in SuperCoach, high 80s average. So while he should score well for coaches this year, I think the question mark we've got to have some big discussions in the off-season about is exactly what happens in the rucks. Because I don't see Flynn getting such a significant price value for us that in Classic, he screams selection to us. Let's just talk about the ruck dilemma for a second. Marshall and English are clearly two very, very dominant performers. Brodie Grundy is heading north to Sydney. It's not secured at time of recording, but everything indicates that it's going to happen. So Grundy's heading there. And then there is a plethora of other value options that could be coming through. Jordan Sweet to Port Adelaide could be a really, really cheap price. And I'm not going to use all my kind of arsenal of thoughts on the rucks just yet, but safe to say, as much as Flynn might be a good pick this year, especially in drafts, I do like him, and a handcuff with him and Bailey Williams I think is a really nice structural and strategic I just don't know, as good as Flynn could and should be, that he's going to push the premium tier of rucks, which we need him to. And he's also not coming in at such a great value point where there's a clear 20 points per game of value. So in Classic, I'm not a huge fan of it, but in Draft I am. I think in Draft he could be a really nice pickup late. I think you could handcuff him with Bailey Williams, and in your draft formats, he's going to be a really nice option. And either way, when you play a handcuff strategy where you pick up both rucks from the one single team, you're going to get a really nice play. So Matthew Flynn, I think it's a great move for him. I think it helps the Eagles' ruck stocks instantly get better. I think the Giants, it just ensures Bruce is a clear front runner for the number 2 spot. And for AFL Fantasy and SuperCoach, I think he's a nice draft buy. But given the competition of what we're going to be doing in the rucks this year, from the premium top end, some value and some guys we'll talk about through this series that are getting traded and moving as free agents, I think there might be some better options outside of him. But Matthew Flynn for drafts is going to be an absolute ripper. Thanks for watching this video. If you're enjoying it, make sure you're catching up every single time a player moves clubs via free agency and trade. We will drop a video here on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We'll have a podcast dropping at the end of this period where myself and several other members of the panel will in more detail look at the big picture of the players that have moved. And then of course you can support us through our Patreon. You'll get additional bonus content that's not just covering the draft, but talking about keeper leagues, classic drafts, everything, all the details to become part of our Patreon. You can find it in the bio and in the description of this video. My name is MJ. Thank you so much for watching. We can't wait to chat with you again soon about another player that's moved clubs this offseason.